Hello and welcome to Working with Miniatures. I'm Jim, and tonight we're going to be painting Spider-Man vs. Doctor Octopus from Marvel Crisis Protocol's Rival Panels. We'll primarily be using Army Painter Speed Paints and Warpaints. Let's get started. This video will focus on Doctor Octopus, which was previously primed black, followed by zenithal sprays of gray and white, and a light dry brushing of white from above. I then start with using Army Painter's 2.0 speed paints to base coat the green and yellow parts of his garb, as well as for the tendrils, hair, and flesh. All of the speed paints used for these base coats have been thinned using Army Painter's speed paint medium, as well as a brush full of water. I then begin work on the green clothing, adding shadows wherever needed and helping to reshape how the light catches on the musculature. Dry brushing works well for quick highlight changes, but his pectoral muscles needed to be reshaped to look more full. For a scientist, or actually for anyone, this guy is all diesel. He clearly benches between mixing beakers. The first highlight is fairly thin and applied liberally, but careful not to intrude over the shadows I previously laid, or to completely lose the base color of the speed paint. During the second highlight that I begin carefully defining the muscle fiber, carefully sketching in narrow lines following the natural curvature, and then the final highlight is done with an even finer line. For the yellow areas, I follow a similar approach as I did for the green sections, first adding a shadow followed by multiple highlights. However, for the yellow, I also add an additional darker shadow near the end. My highlights were done in a manner that it started to make some of it look like non-metallic metal, which is not what I want for parts of the clothing. So for the yellows that are not the gauntlets, boots, or belt, I end with a light tint for the base coat, then with speed paint medium to tone it back down. For the hair, belt, boots, and gauntlet, I use a cheap synthetic brush to apply Mr. Weathering's ground brown mixed with solvent. I apply this liberally over the hair, but pin wash it in choice places on the yellow areas. The hair is then highlighted with a light brown, followed by a tint of thin speed paint to separate further from the tone of the flesh. For the tendrils, I apply thin highlights on two sides of each coil where the light would reflect the most, followed by a thinner line within the first highlight. A fine, darker line is then added to each side of these highlights, stacked as a minor shadow. I had to be careful to apply these shadows thinly, as it is easy to apply too heavy and to make it too jarring to contrast. For the flesh, I added a highlight of corpse pale, which turned out to be too bright of a jump, so I thinned down the base coat of peachy flesh and lightly applied it over the face to tone down the first highlight. I then add a thinner highlight of corpse pale over a smaller area than the first application. The remaining minor elements were finished off camera, but the colors used to paint them will be shown at the end of this video as always. Before, I typically spent about 6 to 8 hours per miniature that I painted, but for this project I really wanted to try to show improvement over what I've been doing, and for Doc Ock alone, I invested over 12 hours of time. This is a final result. I hated to say it at the time, but this is likely the best miniature I've painted thus far. Despite that, there are quite a few things that can be improved upon, such as the lighting on the core or at the back of the tendrils, and the muzzle flare especially. I did like how the yellow and green clothing came out. I can almost say I'm starting to grasp light placement and shape, but I still think there's a lot of room for improvement. It's going to wrap it up for today. I hope you learned something or inspired to start or expand your own collection. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them below. And if you like the content of this video and would like to see more, please like, share, and subscribe. I'm Jim with Working with Miniatures. I'm truly grateful for your time, and I bid you a fond farewell. Till next video.